Mr. President, never in my time in Congress have I seen a bill that does so much damage in so many ways to so many people in so many states and that will affect so many generations. Mr. President, the clerks have read the bill. It's now time for us to kill the bill. The point of reading the bill was to reveal that this bill has one goal, and that is to extend tax cuts to very wealthy Americans, where the top 1% will get 60% of the benefit, and to make everyday Americans pay the price to fund those tax cuts. And it's no wonder right now that 2 in 3 Americans oppose this bill. The question is, will the United States Senate oppose this bill? Here are just a few ways that the President's so-called one big, beautiful bill will hurt Vermont. In Vermont, 11,500 people will lose their health care coverage under Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. 21,000 Vermonters will lose Medicaid coverage. And food nutrition programs that are so essential to the well-being of your citizens and mine. In Vermont, the SNAP program, 11% of our households use it, 65,000 people. A little over a third of households rely on the SNAP program, and they have kids. Nearly 3,000 veterans in Vermont rely on the SNAP program. By the way, we're talking about $6 a day. Billions are going to be cut across the country, and that's going to hurt Vermont, and it's going to hurt everyone. In Vermont, some homeowners, to save money on their energy bills, use the home energy efficiency upgrades that was made possible under the Inflation Reduction Act. Those are being ripped apart. Folks saved about $420 to $980 a year. That's real money for people living paycheck to paycheck. This bill scraps that. Mr. President, here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, we still have time to kill this bill. And we should kill this bill. We Democrats are united in opposition to this bill, but it's not only Democrats whose constituents are going to be hurt by this bill. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle have an opportunity to make a choice. Read the bill and decide, are you going to protect your constituents who are going to suffer the same afflictions as my constituents, or are you going to defer to President Trump? The bad in this bill, it's going to inflict bipartisan pain. This is not aiming at red state or blue state. This is aimed at working class and middle class Americans. More than 76,000, just to give an example, West Virginia, a great state I visited, went into a coal mine, hardest working people ever, except maybe for Vermont dairy farmers. More than 76,000 people in West Virginia will lose access to health care because of this bill. 278,000 West Virginians are going to lose access to the nutrition programs of SNAP. In Tennessee, more than 295,000 people will lose access to health care, Medicaid, through this bill. And SNAP means 758,000 Tennesseans lose their nutrition benefits. So I just want to repeat here, this is the bipartisan infliction of pain. This is real. This is real. And is the tax cut largely directed to the very wealthy people? Is it worth inflicting that kind of pain on so many when the tax cut benefits so few? Mr. President, let's talk more about what's in this bill, because the American people, they need to know what we're voting on. It makes major cuts, of course, as I've said, in Medicaid. But the immediate effect of those Medicaid cuts is that it really threatens the financial stability, the viability of the community hospitals that are in all of our communities. Folks are going to show up to get care And across the country, 17 million people will lose any reimbursement from Medicaid. So they'll go to our community hospitals and they'll do what they do. They'll provide care even if they don't get paid, but they can only do that so long. So those hospitals are literally threatened to go out of business in every single state. This bill cuts Medicaid by over $930 billion. So that ripple effect is going to hurt all of our hospitals. And absolutely some of those are going to close. And by the way, that's going to result in a higher cost shift so that those employers who are doing everything they can to provide employer-sponsored health care for their employees are going to see their premiums spike badly. The bill's going to rip away food assistance programs that more than 42 million Americans need. That's $6 a day, as I mentioned, and that'll be gone. This, by the way, has a real impact on our farmers. They put food on our table. One of the things that our farmers are so proud of is they feed America and they feed the world. And they've been able to supply the food that is then distributed through the SNAP program. It's going to undercut the revenue that they get for doing really good for a lot of people across our country. The bill takes us backwards in our effort to expand energy production and fight climate change. The bill actually adds a tax on wind and solar. It takes away the incentives and it adds a tax. And Mr. President, 95% of the new electric generation, and we need so much more of it, in the past few years has come from clean energy. We don't have that going into production to provide energy along with storage technology. The cost of electricity to the people you represent and the folks I represent in Vermont is going up. Mr. President, there's another aspect of this bill. It just makes no sense being in this bill, and it makes no sense being in any bill particularly. It is a Republican-led bill that strips states of their right to pass laws to protect their consumers against AI threats and against social media threats. It imposes a moratorium for 10 years on any states taking any action. This affects Vermont directly. It affects every single one of our states. And how, I ask, can one argue they're for state rights and then strip states of being able to act on behalf of their own citizens? This bill is a real threat to our economy. It's going to increase the debt, already about $35 trillion, by at least $3.3 trillion. And for what? Tax cuts to very, very wealthy people, multinational corporations who are having record profits at the expense of health care, at the expense of our community hospitals, at the expense of our investments in clean energy, at the expense of our food and nutrition programs. Invested in what? It's destructive. It's not productive. Inflation is going up under this bill. Just think of how much more we're going to pay in debt service. Dead money. It's about $1 trillion. So home mortgages, folks are going to be paying at least $1,000 more. Small business loans, at least $1,000 more. Grocery prices definitely going up for about all Americans. You know, Mr. President, there's an ugly aspect of this bill as well. And it is that this bill is entirely in service of providing tax cuts largely to the very wealthy. The top 1% of income earners in this country will get 60% of the benefit. That's a couple of 100,000 people will get immense tax breaks that exceed the so-called tax breaks that go to a couple of 100 million Americans. And it's those in the 60% category that are going to be paying the higher prices for utilities, credit card debt, cost of a car loan, rent, groceries. So, Mr. President, I say let's come to our senses and not do something that is in a massive escalation of the wealth transfer from the working class, the middle class, to the very, very wealthy. Many of us have a number of amendments, and I do too, to try to make the point that our job is to make things better for everyday working Americans, not inflict additional burdens on them. We have a job to do, and it's to strengthen this economy, provide more stability for our families and our communities. And in this bill, we're doing exactly the opposite, aggravating income inequality, not mitigating it, accelerating climate change rather than diminishing it, making life tougher for everyday families. Mr. President, I urge my colleagues to defeat this bill, and I yield back.